All right, everyone, welcome to today's meeting of the Simple City Council for a workshop. My apologies. I was in a meeting and just couldn't get away. So first thing is we'll receive public comments. We do have someone that has signed up to give us public comments today, Mr. Rayford Brown. You got 3 minutes on the airport. You can go up to the front if you'd like.
Is Sean Parker here?
No, he's not. He's out today.
Okay.
But go ahead, or if you would rather wait and put it off till next time, that's fine.
That item's
What?
being postponed until the next workshop.
All I wanted to make sure is that
It's
with all these,
It's postponed for the next workshop.
It's on the agenda.
But
though.
you can still speak, though.
If you would like.
Yeah.
all right, Rayford Brown, 64 Runway Lane, up north of the airport. And my concerns are that the modifications, I've seen what happened to the executive, now Austin executive, when they put in the big terminal and then they chase off all the general aviation aircraft and they only want to sell jet fuel and raise the price of avgas. It's bad enough at $6.45, let alone going to $7.50 a gallon. Thank you.
Mhm. Are you a pilot?
I'm a certified flight instructor, civil engine land.
Very good.
Definitely general in the aviation.
Okay, very good. Thank you. All right, now we'll move on to item 2 on the work session. It's discussed as may be needed. Any regular meeting agenda items for tonight's meeting? Anything on the consent or regular? I would like to talk about item 4. It might be, I think I am confused. So item 4 is the second and final reading for the multifamily up there by First Baptist. And it was my understanding that we weren't going to bring this back until the TIA had been done. And evidently that's not the case. So could you
Yes.
go through and get us up to speed on that?
Yes, I did confer with Charlotte because she was here during this meeting, so she's here if there's any more specific questions. But it was her memory that there was discussion about waiting until the TIA is performed, but that ultimately that would prolong and delay the process. So the decision was made to go ahead and approve the ordinance with that additional requirement that they perform a TIA and implement any requirements or any findings from that TIA.
Okay.
And then whenever the development is ready to go forward as part of the DRC process, they do pull the ordinance and then they will review all of the requirements and then will ensure during the planning process and the development process that all of those requirements, including the TIA, are complied with at that time.
And then assuming all that happens, council doesn't see it again.
Correct.
It's approved, done and done.
Yes.
Okay. Did everybody else get that or was it just me?
No.
Actually, don't answer that. All
That's what
right. I'm sorry, then I misunderstood the process.
That's what I understood. But
There was some initial discussion about doing that, about requiring them to have a TIA and tabling the item until the TIA was completed and then bringing it back for further consideration at that time. But there was also discussion that would delay the process significantly, and getting the TIA completed and then bringing the report back. So I think at that point, Wendell amended his motion to include that they not only conduct a TIA, but also then implement any requirements that the TIA found that they needed to, if any were.
And then when they've done that, that would drop the 55 and over requirement. That now makes it full market.
Yes, the motion as presented at the last council meeting and as approved on first reading was to remove the age requirement and all of the other conditions that P and Z had also recommended.
Okay.
Along with the TIA and implementing any requirements.
And Charlotte, just clarify, if for some reason the expense, say they had to improve Tanglehead, and that was an expense that they were not willing to undertake, that would come back.
at
to
that
council.
point,
If the TIA said to do that and they
that's right.
disputed that, then they would come back to council.
Yes, if they wanted to change, that becomes a condition of the PD.
Mhm.
So if they then wanted to change anything about the PD, including a condition imposed by the TIA, then they would have to bring it back to council for an PD.
Okay, okay, very good. Thank y'all for clarifying. I missed that. Anything else before we move on?
And we did, I'm sorry, just include that on the regular agenda, just because it does require a 3/4 vote, which is 4 out of 5, just to accommodate that. But there's no additional public hearing, and there's no need for a presentation unless you want one at that time. We really just did that for voting purposes.
Can I just add something? Maybe this would prevent you all from wanting to pull it for a presentation. You're welcome to, but just to follow up on one, I think it might have been your question, Councilmember Williams, about the timing for construction for Tanglehead and for Sanders Farm. So we got confirmation that February, that both of those roads would be improved. So it's happening and it's moving along.
The complaints I've heard obviously have been about traffic density out there. And it's already dense, you know, this one's not gonna push it over the top. We'll just add to it. So, okay.
So would you need any presentation by Brian at the meeting, or just present it for voting purposes?
I think we can probably just do voting purposes, don't y'all?
One question, improved the Tanglehead and,
Sanders
Right,
Farm.
thank you. We understand what improved means.
So just the final construction.
Okay,
And so that's,
it's not an amorphous term there.
no.
Okay, good. Thank you.
It's new.
Traffic signal.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Over new roads.
Those are new. Those
Right.
sections are
Yeah.
carved in.
Mayor, I tend to think that a brief presentation that goes over again the restrictions that have been placed by P and Z and the council. So it's made clear to people who will be there, these are all still in place.
Okay.
I don't think we have to go through the full-blown presentation.
Okay.
But I sense that would be good for those people that may be there listening to it, to hear and make sure they understand the 100 feet, 3 stories back behind that, the fencing, all the things that have been agreed to and made a stipulation.
Those slides are up front, so we can go over them.
Okay.
Wouldn't be surprised if we had some folks wanting to speak on it, and it's not a
It's
public
not a
hearing.
public hearing. They have to do it during,
Public
Public
comment.
And you know what, I'll make a note of that to
yeah,
let them know that.
allow them that up.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, doke. Anything else on that?
Yeah, Brian, when we get the PI back, and it's not, there's some questions about layout and what impact it's gonna have on the traffic, that it would be detrimental to the area where we do.
Well, so it's not going to talk about being detrimental, regardless of what impact, so the impact is specifically going to be on turning movements and capacity for those roadways. And so it's really just going to focus on recommendations for access in and out of the site and perimeter streets that are impacted. So it's truly, if there are any recommendations, it's just about roadways and access. And so it'll be crystal clear what needs to be done if there's anything, but it won't address any other type of potential impact on neighbors, et cetera.
Okay. All right, thank you.
But we have about 30 conditions that
Yes.
you can add to tonight if you want to.
Gotcha. Thank you.
One thing I thought about last time, because it might be helpful to clarify that it's already approved for apartments.
Right.
And, whether or not the next two conditions go forward or not, it's already approved for multifamily, and the zoning isn't changing. Just the
Yes.
cheating condition.
Yes,
I think some people were getting a little bit mixed up with the last.
Yeah. that's a good point.
I agree.
In terms of what's the baseline?
Sounds like we're getting a full presentation.
Well, you gotta have.
The short agenda. Wow. All right, very good. Anything else on item 1? Okay. Moving on to item 2 is to receive a presentation from Dr. Jeff Bates, who is Chief Medical Officer regarding the Coriel Health Clinic. Then before Dr. Bates comes up, I want to introduce everyone to Paul Carr. Paul is a friend of mine, a fellow Rotarian, and he would like to take just a minute to intro Dr. Bates and Coriel Clinic.
Yes, Dr. Bates is the Chief Medical Officer for Coriel Health, which is based in Gatesville. Opening a clinic, it's now open on West Adams. If you want access to their specialists and things. So Dr. Bates' background, he's been in Central Texas and in Temple for 20 years. Black and white early in his career, and he can explain more of that. He's also been a hospice doctor here in Central Texas for years. So if you've ever had a family member involved with that, he's probably been connected with your family that way. Anyway, with no further ado, Dr. Bates.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Stand up this way. Yeah, so as Paul said, Dr. Jeff Bates, I came to this town 25 years ago to do my residency at Scott and White. And that's usually the way doctors come to your community is once you're here doing a residency, we tend to stay. So it's a great recruiting tool, and you've seen that over the last 100 years at Scott and White. I did 2 residencies at Scott and White, internal medicine and pediatrics. The thing I'm most proud of is a hospice doctor. I've done that for a decade. I live in this community. I've been in this community for 25 years. But for the last 12 years, I've been driving to Gatesville to be their doctor, and now I'm their vice president. So Coriel Health is a community hospital. It's a government entity, not like what we have here. It's a county medical authority. So we have the ability to tax and take land, but we don't do either one of those because that would be very uncool. So we say we make money the old-fashioned way, which is to earn it, which is very challenging in this market that we live in.
You're kind of taking shots at us.
I don't know anything about all this. It's a challenge. It's a challenge. 1940, this was our hospital in Gatesville. It still stands there. If you've been to Gatesville in the last 40 years to visit the hospital or the nursing home, that's what it's looked like. But I'm much more proud of this because in the last couple of years, not only did we go through the whole COVID thing, and maybe you remember an explosion we had, we built a $40 million hospital. And as a government entity, you'll like this, we got a note from the USDA for 40 years for our $40 million, and it was 2.5%. So we're a little bit proud of that. Coriel Health, we do a number of things. Maybe we don't have the ability to tax, but we do have eminent domain. We do have tort protection. We have the full line of services that you might expect for any hospital. We're unlike most little hospitals. I won't name any names, but I grew up in a small town. My grandfather was the guy who got the Hill-Burton money to get the hospital in the first place in the 40s. And so the same thing happened in Gatesville, Texas. What changed in about 2010 was the 1115 waiver. And I don't know if that applies to y'all, and y'all know anything about the 1115 waiver, but another government program that my CEO reads the Wall Street Journal every day, and he was aware of this dynamic, and it's been very profitable for us. We went from, when I got there, the budget, we might have $1 million in the bank. Today, we have $100 million in the bank, which I think is unheard of for a small town hospital. The only thing that I can find that compares to it is the small town hospital in a place called Lake Tahoe, California, or Nevada. We have 500 plus employees. We're one of the biggest employers in Gatesville, except for maybe the prison system that you might be aware of. We have 6 or 7 prisons. We have an emergency room. We run the ambulance service for Gatesville and for McGregor. And I'm proud to say that the ambulance service got the award for the best ambulance service in the state a few years ago. So above Houston and Dallas and San Antonio was little old Coriel, Gatesville, Texas. That's what we look like. Our ER, we got some grant money about 20 years ago, and then Gary Havens gave us a little bit of money. We built a nice new ER. Our radiologist is Kevin Dwyer, who is Scott and White trained like me, and he has his job for Scott and White for 15 years was go to Gatesville and be the radiologist. And so about 3 or 4 years ago, he started working for us. But if you've ever been to your doctor and they say, well, you know, if you go to Gatesville, you might not get the good stuff. Well, we actually have the best stuff. It's probably not a Scott and White radiologist. Well, actually, it is a Scott and White radiologist. And so those arguments don't really hold water. Our main purpose and our main focus is on our clinic in Gatesville, Texas. For 30 years now, we've had a clinic in Mills County. Their population is about 5,000, the town of Goldthwaite. We've maintained that clinic the whole time. We built new clinics in the last few years at our place. A couple of years ago, during COVID, Scott and White announced that they were going to close the Moody Clinic, which the Moody Foundation was shocked because they found out the same way I did. They found out on Facebook that they were closing the clinic, and they thought it was their clinic. And I thought that was a bad move. And so I worked really hard to reopen the Moody Clinic. Maybe not the best financial plan I ever made, but we run the Moody Clinic. We have Temple space. We have space in Temple. We have, we've been here for a year quietly, building, but, oh, is that me? I'm sorry. I thought I turned everything off. I'm a popular guy. At 6208 West Adams, we have this clinic space. It's four-room clinic, and we have a nurse practitioner there. Dr. Rusty Rose, dermatologist. He's been operating out of there for about a year and a half now. We have clinic space in Waco, not because I was trying to compete with the Waco market and not because I'm really trying to compete with the Temple market, but I hired a bunch of doctors from Waco and Temple, and they have practices. And so their patients were saying, could we follow up in the Waco clinic? And so that's the reason that I got Waco space. My doctors, routine healthcare. My doctors are what I think is the best. When I built a dialysis center 12 years ago, I wanted Alan Nickel. He's the smartest doctor I know, but he's retired. And so he trained the very first nephrology fellow in this town, Don Chaffer, and he and I were residents together. And so Don came to Gatesville to start my dialysis center. That was my first step for a brilliant guy. The best surgeon in Waco, Texas is or was John Balduniak. And we recruited him away about 10 years ago. I started working on him. He came out about once a week. And a few years ago, he said, this is the best part of my week is when I'm in Gatesville. And so I feel like I have the best general surgeon. I let him operate on me and my daughter. I got what I think was the best orthopedic surgeon from Providence Hospital in Waco. And so my argument to you is that we're not just a one-horse town in Gatesville with a little crummy hospital. We have a full-fledged medical center that I'm quite proud of. Those are some of the names. You might know some of them. Waco doctor, Scott and White doctor, Scott and White Hillcrest doctor, Waco doctor, Scott and White doctor. So I always joke that there's two kinds of doctors in the community. Those who work at Scott and White and those who used to work at Scott and White. I would be the latter. We started a bariatric program a couple of years ago. I had to buy a $2 million robot for the guy, but my general surgeon said, absolutely not. There's no reason we should be doing bariatric surgery. There's only one guy in the state of Texas that you should even talk to. And I said, okay. And so I came back to him 6 months later and I said, I'm still thinking about this bariatrics thing. And he says, there's no way. And I said, what? He said, well, who's the doctor? And I said, David Gottner. And he said, how did you get that guy? And so I think a lot of small town hospitals suffer from this, we got a guy, but that's not us. I think I got the best guy. Richard Hurley did his residency at Scott and White 30 years ago, and he's been doing pain management at Providence for 30 years. Jake Battle, same thing, most successful orthopedic surgeon in Waco. Neither one of those are Scott and White doctors. So David Gottner is the bariatrics guy. He's a Scott and White doctor, or formerly was. That's our $2 million robot. We got Waco Cardiology. He does training at Scott and White. We got a cath lab. I was building a cath lab to do diagnostic studies because I thought that would be convenient for our patients. During COVID, the Scott and White cath lab shut down for about 3 months because they might get COVID. And so you couldn't get a cath. And I had a cath lab. And so I literally had a board member in my ER who needed a heart cath and a stent. And my guys are qualified and I've got the machine. And so I said, all right, you're not going to get a stent any other way. So we started doing stents last year. COVID kind of helped us on that. My CEO's mother is 97. She's in our rehab program there. She's the model for that. James Barker is my mentor. He was my program director when I was a Scott and White resident. He was our pulmonologist and got our pulmonary program started. We got full service sleep. We partnered with DaVita to do the dialysis about 10 years ago. We have a hyperbaric chamber. In the old days, the hyperbaric chamber looked like this room. You could put 6 or 8, 12 patients in it. Now this is what it looks like. When you just sit in there, you can watch TV, but it's great for wound healing, chronic wounds. Infusion center. On our campus, the day of our explosion, I won't talk about it in a lot, but one of the problems on the day of our explosion is I have 150 people who live on our campus. I don't know how many acres it is. We're kind of spread out, but we have 90 people in the nursing home. We had 30 people in apartments. We have 30 people in assisted living. And so not only did I have to evacuate the hospital, I had to evacuate all these people from their homes, find placement for them while we got things up and running again. If anybody's paying for their mom, my independent living at the Oaks is independent apartments, and it literally costs $2,000 to $3,000 a month, all expenses covered except for your cell phone. So if anybody's on 31st Street, go tell them you only want to pay $3,000 and see what that looks like. So they stay full. Everything we have stays full in our rehab centers. That's what they look like. It's not some crummy little small town something. It's all brand new. When we were adding on to our nursing home, we added a whole new wing just in case there was a young 50 or 60-year-old guy who needed a knee, and you don't really want to be at the nursing home. You got to be rehab for your knee. So we added on that a few years ago. That's what our rooms look like. That's back to the hospital. It's got to leave. So this is my nurse practitioner. She was a hospice nurse with me here in Temple for 3 or 4 or 5 years. Then she went back and did NP training. And she's been out for a few years, and I told her about this possibility. Academy. She's an academy girl. And so we have access to all of our specialists, all of our stuff on Adams. And so when I was at the Rotary doing this talk, the Lions Club, they said, I got my colonoscopy is in November. Can you do better than that? And I said, well, let's see, it's Wednesday. So you got to drink the prep. I could do it on Friday. Does that sound better? I think that this community, it's floored me since I've been here, that my friends say, oh, I got to have an MRI. I said, well, when is it? And they said, it's next Thursday. Like, well, why does it have to be next Thursday? I'm going to see the specialist. Okay, when's that? It's in 8 weeks. 8 weeks? So you might die by then. I don't really understand that concept. I have great doctors and I have quick access. My friends do it. Paul will call me and say, need a cardiologist. I say, how about tomorrow? You want me to work you in tomorrow? And so it's a shame that you just have to be my friend to make that happen. Minimally invasive surgery center. So as I started these projects a few years ago, we got a robot. Dr. Tate developed a knee robot here in this town. And Waco, I still don't think has a robot in their town for knee surgeries. But my new guy wanted a robot, and so I bought him a robot to do knees. And then when I hired the bariatric surgeon, he uses a robot. He wanted a robot, and so I had to buy another robot for him. So I got 2 robots. So when you got 2 robots, that makes you a minimally invasive surgery center. And so I challenge any small town to see if they got 1 robot, much less 2. So I'm a little bit proud of that. This is our motto: big city medicine with a small town feel, because I really have good stuff, the best of the best. And you're going to ask me, how does that happen? How did that happen? And so years ago, one of my doctors had a mission in Haiti. And so he started working there. And then that helped him recruit the next doctor who was mission minded. And we got projects in Uganda. And me and that radiologist that I showed you a minute ago, we started a 501c3 called the Lord for it, because we're all kind of on the same mission to take care of people, whatever that looks like. And as it applies to this community, Jesus fixing to ask me, I'm a hospice doctor. And one of the things that we don't have in Temple, Texas, or Waco, Texas, or Belton, Texas, is a hospice house, a place where people can go and die. Tulsa, Oklahoma has a $13 million one. It's pretty nice. My dad died in one in Gainesville, Florida, and it's a $15 million structure. And so me and Paul and some of our friends are trying to start a hospice house in this community. So maybe you'll have me back to talk about that. But that's been key to my physician recruitment. That's the way I get doctors, is they don't have to be on call at night. They don't have to come in and take care of crazy stuff. That's part of what comes with being a university hospital like Scott and White, is this constant battle to keep things afloat. I don't have that battle. And so after my doctors work a few years and they learn their trade, they're looking for a nicer, kinder place to work. And so they're certainly friendly and they're accessible. What's on my list that I didn't leave? That's pretty good. I'll take questions.
Are you planning or hoping for the hospice house to be in Temple or in Gatesville?
No, I think that we need about 5 in this community. And so a guy gave me a 57 T-Bird mint condition to sell or auction for Liberty Hill. Now you know where Liberty Hill is.
South.
Yeah, and so I'm saying Central Texas. My wife is a nurse, a hospice nurse turned nurse practitioner. I've been doing hospice for a decade, and so I think the first hospice house that we start ought to be in Central. Because it's easy for me to just run over there and take care of things.
Good.
I was gonna ask that question, but you
Oh,
already
see?
did. So what would the hospice house do?
So the problem with hospice is a wonderful thing. If anybody's had family members on hospice is a Medicare defined benefit. Even if you're not on Medicare, Medicare makes the rules. And what they do is they say, I will provide you with a doctor and a nurse and medications and a hospital bed, all those things. But they don't provide your rent. They don't pay your bill. And so if you're a rich guy, you got a house, you can bring your mom to your house, you can pay some people. If you don't have a house, then you go to the nursing home. Well, what happens when you're 28 years old and you got a brain tumor? That guy's going to the nursing home? That doesn't make sense. And so they frequently die in the hospital. So a house is the big issue. Hospice is it, a house is it, and because it needs to be a community thing, not just Jeff's hospice house. But the second thing is someone there 24/7 to hold your mother's hand. You got to go to work. Half the people who have family on hospice, they're still working. And so what do I do with mom? I can take care of her at night, but I got to go to work. I got to pay the bills. And so if mom dies while you're gone, that's terrible. So to provide 24/7 staffing.
At what point in the decline of the patient's health do you define going to hospice or hospice
I
coming
don't,
to
Medicare
you?
does. Medicare says that me, the hospice doctor, has to look at them and say, I don't think we'll be alive in 6 months.
6 months.
6 months.
Okay.
The tragedy is about a third of people in hospice die within the first week, usually in the first 2 days. And so a third of these people are already so late in the game that no one's gotten to them and said, you're not going to make it. You got cancer. You should stop doing chemotherapy. Maybe you want to go fishing with your grandkids instead. So that's kind of the tragedy is doctors just want to keep fixing things and someone should just really have a real conversation with you. Yeah, a third died very quickly. These are not Coriel questions. I'm here for an agenda. The agenda was to tell you about Coriel. So you got access. You got a walk-in clinic. You can walk in. If you walk in and they say you need cardiology, you can go see Dr. Gant. I love Dr. Gant. It's going to be 6 weeks. I can get you Dr. Kilani tomorrow. I can get your stress test tomorrow. I can get
Did I
your MRI
see you
tomorrow.
have a couple of different types of insurance that you
Yeah,
accept?
you take it all. You take it all. That's always the most common thing that those guys will say. Yeah, well, they don't take the Scott and White health plan. We take TRICARE. We take all the usual stuff. We have contracts with all those people. They started it. In 1984, they started their health plan. And they went to Gatesville. And the very first clinic that they had that was a rural clinic was Gatesville. They took the Gatesville Medical Clinic and said, what if you guys become Scott and White doctors and you take the health plan? So, yeah, it's hard to make that argument since it's been 35 years of us taking their insurance. Yes, we take it. Anything that you can think of that I could do to help present this to the community in a different fashion than this? Organization, Rotary Lines, let me know. I'll be happy to talk to you after class.
Do your doctors have admitting privileges to Scott and White?
No, Scott and White's a closed shop.
So any type of surgery would be done in Gatesville,
You could.
but it can't be done at the minimally invasive.
Yeah. I'm not here to tell you that I do everything.
Sure.
You need a brain transplant. I need to be at Scott and White. You got a spear in your chest, you need to be at Scott and White. If your grandmother has pneumonia, it's a pretty common story for us. You're a young, healthy guy, you need a heart cath, but you want to do it today instead of 6 weeks from now. But yeah, there's certainly a role for it. I'm not mad at him. I used to run that place on the hill. That's the scary thought, was that after being a doctor for 1 year in this town, they gave me the keys and said, all right, Jeff, we're going home. Y'all are in charge. That's how it works in a residency-driven program. You used to run that place, now I run this place.
When King's Daughters was open, people liked that choice, right? They enjoyed that. And people also enjoy Seton. But then that's in Harker Heights, so.
The funny thing about the King's Daughter story, since you brought it up, is I had a guy tell me in the ER one time, I was at Scott and White as a resident, seeing a patient. He says, I don't usually come here because it's just a bunch of residents. I go over to King's Daughters. We all kind of chuckled because the ER doctors at King's Daughters were residents meanwhile. And so you can see me at Scott and White with my attending physician, or you can show me at King's Daughter by myself. Either way, you're seeing a resident.
Very good. Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
All right, item 3 on the agenda is to receive a presentation regarding the Temple Medical and Education District neighborhood. You trust her with that?
Got double goodies.
Oh.
This is for today, for today, and then we've got chili. You guys can eat.
Oh, my gosh.
Thank you.
I vote for that.
Isn't it the best about, be careful with that, the fight. Yeah. Yeah. We're ushering in the cool weather.
Yeah, I know.
Remember this, we can be both.
He knew.
Thank you.
That's right. And we're fairly cheap.
Wanted to give that opportunity to hand everything out. And I apologize, the date of my presentation is the original date. So this is our TMED district plan. I'm excited to bring it to you. It is a very large area. So as you can see in your booklet, it's a very large plan. I believe we started in April of 2021. And so you can see it took us a while. Typically it's a 5 to 6 month planning process, but this can take a while. We also took a large opportunity, I'll talk about that, to address a lot of the comments that we received after we finished the draft of the plan. So the plan area in a gist, the northern part is Avenue N, and then you go along MLK Drive. So essentially what we did is that we included the area of actual TMED, then your TMED South area down there. And then we also came across and included the McLean Children's Hospital, as well as the Temple Mall area. So each of our areas starts out with a public engagement. We handed out surveys. We met with several different focus groups, several within this area. We had an external planning team that met regularly to provide feedback along the way. We did our NPD news edition in order to get the word out about the plan and get feedback from residents. And then what we've been doing is taking this before several different boards, such as our historic preservation board, our neighborhood revitalization advisory board, as well as the planning and zoning commission. So with every plan, we do a song. We'll play.
TMED, there's so much you can see. I said TMED, see new things all around. I said TMED, you will be inspired. There's so much to do and see. TMED, there's a place you can go. I said TMED, there's great traffic flow. You can stay there, and I'm sure you will find many ways to have a good time. It's fun to visit the TMED.
That was Shawnee's, and then I think the group was Nancy and the rest of the team. I never sing. I only write. I refuse. Although after, just wait, you'll hear, I can't wait till you all hear the Garden District.
It's really good.
You all felt Jackson Park was the best. I think now Garden District's the best, so I'm excited.
On iTunes.
Available for purchase. No, I'm just kidding. All right. So as you all know, there were a lot of previous planning efforts with the TMed district to include TMed as well as TMed South. So we really took those in mind and we referenced all of those documents as we began our planning process. So this area is adjacent to 5 other neighborhood planning districts. It's a very large area, includes several different hospitals, Temple College, the Temple Mall area, as well as Tarrant Park and a lot of opportunities for new development in the TMed South area. We have several different thoroughfare plan recommendations throughout the plan area, and I'll go through it right now. So 31st Street is that major arterial that basically runs north-south within this corridor. And so what we're recommending here is 4 lanes of travel with a center turn lane, as well as sidewalks on either side with a planting strip in between. We have 5th Street on your right-hand side of your screen here. This is very important corridor. You'll see some recommendations that we have for some realignment of 5th Street within the TMed South area. Friars Creek Trail also intersects with this. So what we're recommending here, it's a minor arterial with 4 lanes of traffic, large planting strip, and then a side path that would accommodate both bicyclists as well as pedestrians.
Aaron, well, that's Fifth Street start from Avenue M.
This street goes all the way from Avenue M.
Okay, good, because it really needs.
Go back to what the previous, wait just a sec, Friars Creek Trail. And should be extended over the loop.
Mhm. Yes, and we'll talk
Oh,
more
the
about
trail,
those.
the trail,
We'll talk
yes,
about the
no,
Friars
good,
Creek Trail.
good,
Yep.
good.
So, and you can see Fifth Street coming up here in the blue, maybe. We'll talk
Right.
about that realignment soon.
Oh, okay.
But you can see how it's more. Avenue M, it's the northernmost boundary. As you recall, we had some recommendations within the Midtown Neighborhood Planning District, and this reflects the same recommendations that we provided within that neighborhood planning district. So this is a 2 travel lanes with a center turn lane, also accommodating a cycle track for bicyclists within the roadway and a sidewalk on both sides. That is considered a minor arterial. 25th Street is what we consider a community collector. It provides access for both vehicular and pedestrian traffic. So what we are recommending here is to have 2 lanes of travel, as well as parallel parking opportunities on either side with the planting strip and sidewalks. Yes,
Karen,
sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, you're
Avenue
fine.
M from 31st to 5th.
Avenue M is along the whole plan boundary is what we're recommending. So all the way to MLK.
To MLK,
Mhm.
okay, good. So the recommendations that were just listed there were from 31st to MLK.
Yes,
On
that's the
M.
total, even though that's outside of the planning boundary to
Mhm.
MLK, yes.
Okay, good. I realize with redistricting, this is Judy's area now, but
That's okay.
I've been hanging over for some time.
I don't think Judy would mind. Cottonwood Lane is a neighborhood collector that we have. So it's typical to a neighborhood collector type of street that would connect to the west of the plan area and the core of the district. 2 lanes of travel, parallel parking on either side with a planting strip and a sidewalk. We have also identified an urban avenue overlay. This would be used for the area specifically between Baylor Scott and White Campus and Temple College. So it can provide, angled parking, parallel parking where that can be done, very wide sidewalks to allow for additional space for plantings, as well as engaging pedestrians. And so you can see it's a very engaging area with more of a 2 lanes of traffic there. 13th Street is a pedestrian connector. Its really purpose for that is to channel pedestrians from local streets to collectors and arterials within the neighborhood. We identified several different pedestrian connectors within this neighborhood to include 9th Street, 13th, 23rd, and Avenue P. So you can see 2 lanes of travel with sidewalks on either side and a landscape planting. The utility placement page, I do like to talk about this because it's something that we've started putting in all of our plans. You know, it's one element that really affects the street environment. So we want to make sure that it's we're just very intentional with our placement of utilities within the right of way and making sure that there's locations. So 1 on that page with the blue line, that's a water line. It's proposed to go under the sidewalk to protect the actual water line. You can see 2 is the planting strip to make sure that is wide enough to allow for trees to grow, roots as well, and looking at potential of if we need any root barriers or anything like that. 3 is providing for stormwater. 4 is placement of the wastewater line, which would be within the right of way, but adjacent to the sidewalk, not under it. And then 5 is a common trench that would be used for, electrical, telecommunications, as well as other utilities.
What's that width? I missed it. From 1 to 5? How wide is
I think, where did we put
40
that
feet?
in there?
Planning strips that are 6 feet or greater.
There we go, thank you.
that? Say that again.
6 feet or greater.
Think I'm missing the bottom.
Total width from 1 to 5,
Oh, that's variable.
depending on how many lanes are needed.
Yeah, but it's
60
variable.
foot right there. isn't it? It does. say
That's the
60.
13th Street. This is.
Oh, right. that's-
So I think we had some dimensions down below. For the trail network, of course, we referenced our 2020 Parks and Trails Master Plan that was recently done and looked at that as well as multimodal paths and as well as street connectivity for trails and all street trails. We identify side paths. So we'll talk about a few different types of pedestrian elements within here. The first is a side path. This is where you would see it located within the road right of way and would be a component. It would follow the street basically. And so it would allow for pedestrians to walk adjacent to the street, but off street. We recommend a minimum paving of 8 feet. However, it's more desirable to do 10 so you can accommodate both bicyclists and pedestrians very well. The Greenway Trail is off street. So that's, that you see that like Pepper Creek Trail and things like that, that would be considered that. And that's a shared use path, completely separate from vehicular travel, a really nice recreational experience. Again, 8 feet minimum paving, but we do recommend 10 to 12 feet to just more comfort for pedestrians when you have people walking as people bicycling. We also have a park loop shown in here. These are your in-park trails that you see in several different other parks that, sometimes they ultimately connect to larger trail networks. So sub-district map, we did the same thing with downtown because there's just so many elements within this. So we identified 5 different sub-districts and I'm going to go over some of those details with you all now. So, and then this is also our element focus group. This is kind of our land use guidance for the direction of new development as well as redevelopment opportunities. So you'll see them referenced on each of the pages and I have each of them highlighted as we go through here. So the Baylor Scott and White area that includes the Baylor Scott and White campus. It's a major employment, shopping, and dining node, and it's really the gateway to South Temple. We identified some neighborhood monumentation within this sub-district. This would really create a sense of place. We've identified the Helix Monument. You all familiar with that. It really blends art with the branding and with branding and the medical component. Avenue U and 13th Street is a great location as it welcomes visitors within the TMed area.
Is that the design that's finalized, so to speak?
I think it changed, I believe, actually, since we've done this plan.
I think it's
If I remember.
the same, but a little
Shorter, right? Yeah, so same design, just smaller scale.
Colors are still there?
Yes,
Good.
I also don't think it has all that retaining wall and landscaping.
right.
Test the base.
The pet.
We approved that.
Susan, other than that, that's it.
Yes, you all did.
All the
Yeah,
smaller-
exactly.
Smaller.
The colors are still there.
I was always told previously by a really smart engineer that you never do a roundabout without something in the center because it keeps everyone's focus and prevents you from going straight. I don't know if that's true.
Say that again.
I was told by an engineer that I loved working with for a very long time, and he always told me that, Erin, if you do a roundabout, always put something in the center. There are so many people that will go straight through, and this really makes you focus, gives you something to focus on, and kind of guides you along the.
Makes sense.
I don't know if he was just pulling my leg, but it sounded good. So then we have the area where we're recommending a trail corridor from Avenue T to JC Park Trail. This corridor would allow for multifamily as well as with improved access to JC Park. And we are proposing that this would extend along the drainage infrastructure. 31st Street improvements, as you all know, this is the primary route to access the planned area. What we are proposing are several different elements such as gateway monuments, nice, looking bus stops and different things, improved pedestrian experience. So we really want to, with this, promote a unique sense of place, accommodate pedestrians, alternative modes of transportation, and really have a clear sense of arrival when you're coming into TMed.
So is that part of the plan to do the cut-ins for the buses?
That was a recommendation of this. Yes.
I think that's a great idea.
Good. College Place is your second sub-district. This is the heart, what we consider the heart of TMed. There are a wide variety of uses here, like the VA Hospital, Temple College, Summit Rec Center, the Temple Civic Theater, as well as our Friars Creek Trail. So we'll talk a little bit about Friars Creek realignment. I'll start with that one. That extends 5th to 31st Street. It would really provide for an important connection between Temple College and the Baylor Scott and White campus. This new road would really create a better edge along the 190 and allow for better opportunities for commercial development. We could also address any flooding issues that are occurring along Friars Creek while expanding the multifamily development along Friars Creek Drive. Temple College would also benefit from the realignment, and we could create a mixed-use node along 5th Street to enhance the Temple College experience. The redevelopment, providing this more direct route would really strengthen the linkage between Temple College and the hospital. It would also, the idea is that it would serve parcels on the frontage, and the backside would be more integrated into the existing development within the area.
Erin,
Yes.
where are you proposing physically? Where are you proposing expanded multifamily on Friars Creek?
Like this is the Brown, we're going to do multifamily there. And with some
Is that
commercial
empty?
here in the south. And some residential.
But that's not empty right now.
No, it's.
There
developed.
happens to be a motel sitting in the middle of it.
Right. But we
Okay,
still
okay.
feel like with that, with any new development that's been proposed or that we're aware of, in the existing, maybe it's more of a redevelopment opportunity.
Okay.
But I think something is proposed recently that really could still fit in this plan. And we were made aware of that during it, and we actually readjusted our alignment to accommodate that future use.
Brian, isn't, right here, hasn't this, he's come back?
Those are
Okay.
the lofts at TMed.
That's what, say what?
The lofts at TMed, Zach
So
Crosstangle.
Zach has come back with.
That's the
That's his
one that
site,
y'all supported,
right,
senior low-income housing tax
Right.
credit project.
but has he come back to, has he,
It's been platted, but has not been permitted to the last I checked. Nancy,
oh, I thought.
So it's platted.
I think there was a delay with the being able to access the property from the Baylor Scott and White property?
Yes, they've got confirmation from Baylor Scott and White, written confirmation that access is granted. So,
Right, that was
yeah,
Is that 2 years?
some time ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah, how long
Yeah,
was that?
at least.
This is, it was probably 2 years ago.
I thought the whole thing had collapsed from federal money. Okay, I'm just in error. Never
Yeah.
mind.
Don't know the delay, but yes.
Review construction plans.
Okay, yes, they've reviewed construction plans, so that's,
I want to say too, with the redevelopment plan shown in here, that this would provide for more market rate housing in this area, which we feel like would be a really important focus within the TMed district. That would be very attractive to employees at Temple College as well as the hospitals. Veterans Memorial Drive, these proposed improvements that we're suggesting here are really an extension of the work that's already been done along First Street near Temple College. So some recommendations for this include additional landscaping, side path, enhanced intersections, alternative modes of transportation, gateway monuments with TMed branding. We looked at the residential reinvestment within this area. So you have some existing residential housing stock that really is in a variety of different conditions. There are properties ranging from a state of repair to there's just a wide array of different conditions that exist. So we do think there are some opportunities within this area for infill renovation and redevelopment that would stabilize and invigorate the neighborhood economic conditions and also provide some orderly redevelopment within the vicinity.
Was that, I'm sorry, was that's Avenue M?
Yes.
Okay,
And then east is veterans.
right.
And I noticed that, that area has 75% of rental.
Oh, really? Yes.
So.
The whole TMed area does.
Yes,
Yes. It does.
So that says a lot of older houses that landlords have purchased, sometimes they forget.
Right.
Step up on it.
Yeah, it would be interesting though. Remember, TMed is a very large area. So you have some multifamily townhomes that have been developed that are residential. I don't know about this particular area since it is a small portion of the neighborhood, if it's mainly home ownership or rental, but we can definitely look more into that. So we have identified 4 different types here, single family conservation, townhouse duplex, multi-story neighborhood apartment, and activity zones. I'll go over each of those briefly. The single family conservation really supports the current scale of development. So you have some infill and renovation projects that should really maintain the desirable characteristics that the neighborhood contains. For the townhome duplex, if that were to be developed in this area, we recommend that there would be an alley to this housing type. Since these are smaller lots, you could still maintain the existing block structure while accommodating units with parking in the rear of the property. For the apartments, and then you can kind of see how they go, go from very high density to low density at the bottom of your screen there. So I'm kind of going up higher in density as you all can hear. So the apartments, we recommend some multi-story apartments that we think that would be helpful in this area. This would increase the number of housing units while also complementing adjacent single family and commercial properties. So really kind of creating a noise buffer would be really important for the neighborhood residents to Veterans Memorial. The activity zone, this would essentially just be a destination for neighborhood residents, which is really important for neighborhood vitality. College Place is the next one here. So Scott and White Park, what this plan recommends is a partnership with TISD to expand the athletic facilities, as well as for Travis Middle School, as well as the addition of play elements. Tarrant Park, I think we're on the 3rd sub-district. So this is developed as a residential neighborhood. However, we identified that it really feels disconnected from the rest of the plan area. So Tarrant Trail is a recommendation within this plan. It's a greenway trail from US 190 that could ultimately extend to the Ferguson Park neighborhood. It would follow an existing utility easement through the single-family neighborhood. And it could be accessed at a commercial node off 190 that would connect the rest of the T-Med trail system, including Temple College, the Baylor Scott and White campus, as well as the Friars Creek Trail. South 31st Street is our next sub-district. This area contains many large economic drivers for the city, such as McLean Children's Hospital, Marketplace Shopping Center, and the Temple Mall. As y'all recall, we had an analysis of this area within our placemaking strategy that contains several different recommendations for redevelopment of the mall area. We feel that in this plan that it's a prime area for redevelopment. Some existing buildings really should remain in this area, but much of the area could be converted to multifamily, retail, and mixed-use development. Also looking at the, that's the next one, no. The realignment of Azalea would really make this area much more accessible, and then high density could be supported with that. The mixed-use element of the mall area would really potentially become a regional destination to attract and accommodate visitors to this area. Market Loop is one of the main roads in this sub-district. It connects McLean Children's Hospital to the Marketplace Shopping Center, as well as across 31st Street to Temple Mall. Right now, there are no pedestrian facilities within this area, and it really lacks some aesthetic appeal, although Dancy's train is something that has been wonderful in this area. So we really incorporated in here. So we do recommend some changes, adding the pedestrian facilities, the landscaping, and you can see, and we tied the train element. That's all Nancy's hard work, but I'm kind of recommending creating a nice buffer to the backside of those commercial properties by doing a nice stone wall with a privacy fence on top.
And take off the wooden fences.
Yes. Oh, yes. A really good point.
We want to do that soon.
Do what?
Take off the wooden fences.
You mean on the
Oh,
right?
there's a
Yes.
great job.
Oh,
Sorry.
Those slabs at the top.
Privately owned, minor
Yeah,
detail.
Take them off.
We need a park so we can see the train.
True. Oak Creek Trail on the right of your screen. This one was really exciting to me. This would connect Oak Creek Park and Highway 190 as well as McLean Children's Hospital. This would include improved access to Oak Creek Park for visitors to the Children's Hospital, as well as residences, businesses, and institutions located on Cottonwood Drive. The trail would include, right now, there's a creek running through here that just really has a lot of shrub vegetation, so that you can't see it. And it's just such a beautiful feature that could be there. So we would really like to improve both the physical and visual access to the creek. And then we can also add some other elements such as picnic tables and seating along the trail corridor.
Did you say connect to 190?
Yes.
How?
Oak Creek Park to, well, Highway 190 frontage up here.
Loop 360.
So here you have Oak Creek Park.
Oh, I've got it. Yes,
Or 360.
I see what you mean.
Right.
It's across there.
T-Med South, last but not least. And I'll talk a lot more about this one. So as you know, we have an existing plan in this area. However, there's currently very little development, but it isn't expected to have a lot of growth within this area. You have some railroad tracks that do bisect this sub-district, but Blackland Road is located out here, and that's really a strong connection that's running east-west within this area. So really this was a huge focus within T-Med. In addition to reevaluating the uses from the original T-Med plan, is a continuous north-south corridor. So essentially connecting all the way from, FM 93 north through the entire city to Loop 363. That would be a continuous travel corridor. We really think that's a vital corridor for connecting and improving access to the community as a whole. The 5th Street in its future and as well as current alignment provides really great access and connectivity to the area. So what we did is we focused on residential development. We looked at, so let me explain a little bit. So at one point, we showed connectivity through this neighborhood here. But we really reevaluated that with this plan because in order to get a nice direct route for people to easily access, south to north, north to south, we've really looked at the realignment of Fifth Street leading up to First Street through this area that is relatively undeveloped at this point. We initially it looked a lot different. But when we sent this plan out, this is where we received most of our comments from the public. And so that's what this plan is all about. We take this into consideration. We met with the majority landowner in this area. We also met with a reinvestment zone focus group and several others to identify a new corridor that would still provide great access north and south in this area. And this is what we ultimately came up with. So there are some future plans that the landowner has. And so this really brings that in. We looked at a mixture of uses. You have some mixed use commercial there that's close to the loop. And then you also look at how we have Azalea Drive that would come into First Fifth Street realignment that would provide a lot of contribute to the connectivity of the area. So we also came up with we looked at some mixed use opportunities, commercial opportunities along Blackland Road, but also providing for housing ownership opportunities to include some compact single family, which are really more of your smaller lots, as well as some traditional single family larger lots. Going on, did you have any questions on that? I know that was a lot, and we received a lot of feedback on this one.
On there,
Yes.
and this, I have such a hard time sometimes. Where is Everest Hospital?
Everest Hospital is,
Up
I'm too
there,
short.
Yeah, right up there. Okay,
I'm too short.
no, I see
Yes.
exactly.
So
Thank
you can kind of see how it comes down. So like basically the existing alignment of the
Yes.
street here, right?
Right,
And then this roadway through the subdivision kind of going up to
Right.
Blackland Road. That's really where we focus. We actually worked with another engineer, an outside engineer on this, was working with the landowner, and they helped us come up with this alignment. I believe the way that it's designed is for a 45-mile-per-hour road. Most likely it would be a 40-mile-an-hour road, but at least you can see that the radius there is designed that way. So we really looked hard into this after getting that feedback, which is the whole point of the process that we love.
You said Alta Vista to the south. Alta Vista.
way
neighborhood.
south.
What is
A
that
little bit
subdivision to
further.
the south, Brian?
Blackland Ranch.
Oh, Blackland Ranch, thank you.
What is that?
Alta Vista's
Yeah.
further south.
Yeah, this is Blackland Ranch, Richard said, just south here.
Okay,
That's that
Alta
one.
Vista's about where the blue lights are.
okay.
So if you're if you're south and you're trying to get to one of these commercial areas relatively quick or get to the loop pretty quick, this would be an awesome corridor to get there relatively fast versus having to go on some neighborhood streets and just really providing that continuous lane of travel, as you can see, getting all the way to FM 93 north. We're excited about what we came up with. So we did a lighting inventory similar to what we did in the downtown district, and we identified the TMED lights that have been put in there for TMED design. There's also different TxDOT lights. You have some Cobra headlights, as well as different lighting within the Baylor Sky and White campus. With all of this, we identify different lighting for different areas, whether it's a neighborhood, more of your collector, arterial type of street, park areas based into trails, as well as some TMED core lighting that would be great for a lot of the mixed use or retail, commercial opportunities and parking and intersections. Signage and wayfinding. We kept with the theme. You know, there was a lot of work and effort put in to create branding for TMED several years ago, so we kept with the theme. What we've been doing with a lot of these, though, is adding street sign toppers. So that's a recommendation here. We also feel like what would be important for this district is to have wayfinding signage. So you can see how the TMED branding can be incorporated into that, as well as the addition of banners to let you know that you're in the TMED district. waste collection, so you remember with the downtown plan, we all really like to see some underground dumpsters really to improve the aesthetics, in more of your higher density areas. So with the vision for the Temple Mall redevelopment and that becoming more mixed use, as well as kind of your Creek area, the street realignment, then we really we see as an opportunity as well for some more underground dumpsters in these areas.
Let me decide those costs.
Huh?
100,000,
Each dumpster or?
the whole, not just the.
Our buy, if you look at getting new into the underground dumpster business, we were looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of $1.5 million to get about 16 dumpsters, the trucks that we needed, all the equipment necessary. I don't recall of that what was the per additional dumpster cost. But that 16 dumpsters and trucks, that was essentially establishing a route that was underground dumpster collection.
Is that the underground demo digging also? Perforating, getting the
No,
holes?
that did not include the
The hole.
digging a hole and putting concrete in.
And moving utilities if they're in the way or.
Minor detail.
Yeah, I think it's site dependent really
Sure,
with
it would
those.
have to be.
But it's exciting to see. We did, of course, run this past our solid waste director, Justin Brantley, who I believe said, correct me if I'm wrong, Nancy, said that this could essentially be one route, so the addition of one truck for this area. Our enhancement focus group, I went over a lot of things with you all. And here it is on one map. I could have just showed this. No, I'm just kidding. But this is your enhancement focus map. It just brings it all together so you can see it all as one. No Creek Trail, Friars Creek redevelopment, the Temple Mall plan that you had in your placemaking strategy, as well as this plan and street improvements as well. Yeah.
32 and 22.
Oak Creek Trail.
and 22 Cottonwood Lane, as David will recall. Tell me where does that part of Cottonwood Lane end? Right there?
So it goes to the Oak Creek Trail over to 31st Street.
Okay, so it doesn't come clear to
I mean, that would be outside. We just went to the plan boundary essentially.
okay, so it is the plan boundary, not further on Cottonwood.
Right. I think we would evaluate that with a future plan.
Okay,
We just stayed within the plan boundary.
okay, good, thanks.
So with that, I'd be happy to answer any of the questions. Receive any more feedback.
Wow.
Lots of work.
Great ideas.
We thought this one was pretty cut and dry, but there was a lot of different
Mhm.
elements to it, so it was fun.
More open space. How much, I always ask this, how much area in that Blackland Research and Extension Center, that big open block, any idea how many acres that is?
The big open block or residential area, and we like yellow.
No, it's basically in the southeast corner, where it actually says Blackland Research and Extension Center.
Oh, yes.
How much, anybody have any idea how many acres?
It's more of a corridor adjacent to one, so it's not as super. But, with this is conceptual, this is more of a plan, so with, planning, and their review, the DRC review, there's going to be, depending upon the type of development that's proposed in the number of units, it will require.
No, I understand all that. I just conceptually, it helps me know kind of how many.
Well, I can't tell you exactly how much, but you can see the green that's kind of proposed here adjacent to Blackland Road. There's kind of a buffer.
No, that's not what I'm asking.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Everything is colored.
Yes,
The pink and the yellow and the salmon and the red.
yes.
How many acres is that?
Oh, the total acreage? I'm not sure.
The Cheerios own 140 acres, so.
Which is everything but this and
Azalea
that.
down to Blackland, research facility is 140 acres. So the middle,
You're saying everything except the red is the cure, or the curia is the curia?
oh, it's gonna be close. This is plus or minus.
Yeah, not up where the mixed use.
Actually, they're
commercial is.
not actually part of,
Part of that,
Yeah.
but it runs, there's sort of
no,
a,
I'm sorry, they're
Yeah.
all,
They own all the.
they're all that. That's 140 acres right here.
oh, they own all,
Yeah.
clear up the top of the big pink?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, that helps. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
The son and the parents, so the family is on this.
Council, anything for Ms. Smith?
And you're still in communication.
I had swimming, that was too much.
I'm sorry. I did not understand you. I apologize.
No, that's, I mean, that's just a lot of information.
I'll get that.
Google tells me 500.
Well, there you go. Wow. A lot more than we thought.
Did you
All right.
have to ask them for it?
No. I told the mayor. it's fine.
All right, very good. Thank you, Erin. Moving on to item 4 is to discuss the city of Temple government policy. Ms. Meyer.
So I apologize in advance. This is going to be a really exciting topic, but I did hand out the current draft of what staff has put together as a potential update to our governing policy. As council will recall, one of the initiatives that we all included in our strategic plan is that we would take a look at our governing standards and policies and update them. They've been in place, I believe, since 1999, our current version. So just wanting an opportunity to go through and make sure that we had our policy in place and was continuing to meet the needs of the city as we grow and develop. I'll also say that a great time to update your governing standards is when you're not having any governing problems. So, if you all are very a council that's very respectful of each other and that works very well together. So it's a great time to kind of set the standards for the future so that hopefully this would never happen, but at any point there's conflict, it's much more difficult to get to a point where you've got a set of shared standards. So that we're bringing this forward for consideration in no way implies that what we're doing right now is broken. It's just good to have an opportunity to take a look. So
Some problems coming.
no, that's not what I'm saying. So I did, I would like to, there's a lot of detail in here. I would like to spend time on the things that I feel like are substantial or even moderate adjustments from what are either our policy or our practices today, and just walk through that. There's a lot of policy decisions that we need feedback on. So this would be the time where we put something on paper, but there's a lot of room for you to make policy decisions, and we would love some feedback on that as we continue to work on this project. The first, and I've highlighted it in yellow if I felt like it was something that we should spend some time talking about. So the first section is public comment. As council knows definitely that we have for a long time had a public comment section on our agenda, have always had a very open process, even before state law required public comments. You all have always supported that on the agenda. So your minimum basic requirement by state law is that you do allow public comments on any on the agenda. But you are able to limit it if you choose to only items that are on that particular agenda. You've done that in practice for your workshop session, and it's part of the board and commission policy that comments and board and commission meetings are limited to agenda items on that particular agenda. But our current practice at the regular council meeting itself has been a completely open any topic, whether it's related to city business or not, whether it's on the agenda or not. So you have several options here. We can certainly continue the current practice of just having comments kind of open-ended. We do have some recommendations related to comments regarding active litigation. And carried forward from your current policy is that public comments isn't really the place for current employees to address employment issues. They need to follow our personnel policy or employee policy manual for that process. So you have the option of keeping it pretty much as is now. You could choose to place limits on the comment has to relate to city business. Or you could require that it be related to an agenda item on that agenda. The way that we have the language drafted currently also indicates that you'll accept public comments from residents of Temple or business or property owners of Temple. So that's also a choice you can make. You can require that, or you can allow comments from a more broad citizenry. So that is one major area we need some feedback on what you would like to do regarding that. We do strongly recommend that we no longer require an address to be provided. We just really need to, again, if you want to have a residency requirement, you can ask somebody to confirm that they live or own property or own a business in Temple. But I would really encourage you not to ask for a specific address. They obviously, stating their name for the record is fine, but I would really encourage you to not seek a specific address. I don't know if you guys want to have conversation as we go, or you want me to cover the items that we really need some feedback on. And I know this is going to be a lot to take in.
So when do we need to start executive session? I think probably about 4.
Okay.
Do you agree? I think it's about an hour long conversation.
I agree.
Okay. So we've got 30 minutes. Let's see how far we can get in that minute.
There's a lot already marked.
Yeah, do you want us to visit about this? Or do you want us to
That's what
wait?
she's asking.
Okay. I like it just the way it is right now. I want people to feel free to come and speak about anything, any issues that they might have. It doesn't have to be according to what is on the agenda. But I kind of like the idea of only having people that either own property in Temple or, have business dealings in Temple. When folks from Dallas want to come down and chat us up, I don't think that's necessary. And I mean,
Well,
unless y'all
so
want to tell me why it is.
Well, ones that are gonna have business in Temple, if they're out counting, but they're having business in Temple, that would be. But
And
other
just
than
as a reminder, this is for public comments,
that,
not for public hearing.
sure.
Right.
So if it's a public hearing item, someone who's developing in Temple or just public comments, you would not have a limit to them being public hearings.
hearing.
I'm sorry, rather that is open. This is really public comments related to things not on the agenda, or that don't have public hearings. You have some more opportunities if you want to have some standards.
So, currently around the, the folks that are speaking regarding DEI, right, that's an emotional issue. And I think there was a guy maybe at the last meeting that said he was a Belton resident, owned property in Temple.
Right.
Right. And so that would qualify that person to speak.
Yes.
But,
There was also
Yeah.
at least one Moody resident that made no mention of owning property or anything, just a Moody resident.
yeah, that, so, someone like that, assuming that they didn't own property in Temple and they didn't state their address, it couldn't be verified. What do you do with someone like that?
I think you just,
I know that's a very narrow,
I think you just ask, again, if you have this as a policy, you would just ask them to verify that they they meet whatever criteria you set.
second to podium.
Or
state your name and confirm your residency, or we could have a little
Okay, yeah,
script, if you
Yeah,
will,
well, I mean, just think about that.
Yeah.
Right.
but it would be the honor system.
But just-
You would
Yeah,
be-
yeah.
like,
We
you
don't
would be-
check their address
Sure.
now, so we would just take.
Yeah.
their word.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I didn't think about having a, changing the wording up about, around the address. Okay, that makes sense. That sounds good. And I also like the idea of not requiring people to give their address. These days and times, you just don't know it.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else around, public comments?
Are you guys okay with limiting, litigation? Someone who's in litigation can still come and speak. It just has to be
No, but
something
litigation.
about other than the litigation.
Yeah.
Threatening litigation.
That's included as well.
Well, I may threaten something, but not follow.
The way it's worded is, it's more broad than having an act. So it's,
Actively
currently
engaged
or threatening civil or criminal litigation, or with whom litigation is reasonably anticipated. Is the wording right now.
including fraud.
Yes. That was the intent, originally, yes, but say this kind of. I would suggest that definitely at this point that it say anyone with whom we are currently involved in litigation, without a doubt. The threatening litigation is a situation where generally, is this the best place to air the grievance? And that's your call. If you want people to come to council and say, the city manager has done this, or the public works department has done this, and I'm going to sue the city, is that the time to air that grievance or not? And that's up to you. If you're okay with hearing those types of comments, then we can definitely strike that part to see that currently involved in litigation.
It's not a hill to die on, but I don't have a problem with somebody being upset enough they're thinking about suing the city and they want to tell us why.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's absolutely.
And it might be
different.
intense to
If they file a
rectify,
suit,
right?
I said, no, that's not the proper venue.
Okay. Sounds good.
Also, I think, about the middle of the paragraph, the giving or transferring of a person's speaking time to another is prohibited. However, in order to expedite, et cetera, whenever a group of people wish to address the city council in the same matter, those people may, those people are encouraged to designate a spokesperson. If the person for whom he or she speaks agrees to yield their time, so the spokesperson chair may extend the time allocation for designated spokesperson. That also is pretty open. If 7 people say,
Essentially,
I yield my time,
21 minutes.
and then number 8 gets up there and spends 20 minutes,
Yeah,
21 minutes, right?
I see no reason for that.
I mean, be reasonable, right? 5 or 6 minutes, 5 minutes maybe, but not 3 minutes times the number of people that yielded.
Right.
The intention is for the chair, so you or Mayor Pro Tem or whoever's serving as the chair in your absence would have the discretion of how much time, and we can make that clear. So it wasn't intended to be that if 9 people give up time, it's 9 times 3.
Right.
It's up to you how much, you feel is reasonable.
Okay.
Based on the number of people they're speaking for,
So
probably.
we turn at that.
Okay. So that's a clarification.
And if we disagree with Tim's
Yes,
designation,
can we-
we just I whack Jessica and she whacks Tim.
And you can run for mayor.
With your blessings.
There's
Someday.
always a process in here to challenge the mayor's decisions on some things.
I know your address.
And I know you're right.
The chair may desire for any comments that are repetitive or comments previously made. Okay, haven't done that. We had done with disrespectful comments.
It's at your discretion.
Yeah, okay, all that's good.
And then the other thing I would point out in this section is that we're also, if somebody during the public comment section wants to use an audio visual material that relies on our city equipment, that they need to sign up for a public appearance so that we can
appropriately scan that material for
Mhm.
viruses, to protect against, intentional or unintentional consequences to our system. So if somebody's wanting to show pictures, or a PowerPoint on the screen, we really need to plan that in advance, so we have a few days to take the appropriate steps.
Because we've had a complaint before where someone thought that whoever was running the AV system was sabotaging them.
Yeah.
Right, because they hadn't put it in order. So
Yeah.
that gives a chance to
Jana
clean
deleted their
this.
photos.
That's what they get.
So that everyone feels comfortable with that. I mean, it still gives a venue for someone to do that. We just need a little more time. Okay, thank
They'll
you.
just have to wait 2 weeks if they didn't
Okay,
set a public appearance.
I know that makes Kelly and Brandon real nervous, so appreciate that. And then public appearances, largely follows along, the same kind of decisions that you just made on public comments. So this is when, someone signs up in advance, for a specific topic. Again, we, have the currently in, litigation, so we can make that language match the public comment section unless you feel differently for some reason about this section.
Is public appearance, I'm reading this quickly.
That goes under the public comments section now, right? Yeah.
But it's someone who's filled out the form and
Right.
Jana has their name and topic specifically on agenda versus signing up right before the meeting.
Oh, no, sure.
Yeah.
Is that required to be on the agenda?
You do not have to offer this, no.
No, I mean,
Wait, no.
what I'm saying is for a public appearance, does the public appearance, whatever they want to speak on, need to be on the actual agenda, or is it just a more broad, public comment?
It has to be on the agenda.
Okay.
So they have to sign up enough in advance to get it onto the agenda. Right.
The idea of the difference between a public appearance and a public comment is the reason you can't reply or have a conversation with someone in the public comment section is because that item wasn't posted on the agenda. And so you haven't given notice to other people in the community that might be interested in that dialogue, that was going to be discussed at the meeting. So that's why you're limited to just listening and saying something factual perhaps back, or saying, we'll get back with you on that, but you can't converse at all. If the item is put on the agenda as a public appearance with the specific topic listed on the agenda, you have a little more freedom to have dialogue with someone because you have noticed the public. So any other person interested in hearing that dialogue would have been properly given proper notice under the Open Meetings Act. That's why some might prefer to schedule a public appearance versus give public comments. The big difference for this policy sake is just following with the practice we have right now is you had given people 5 minutes instead of 3 minutes, so that we just left that the same. And then again, this would be the appropriate venue to use if there was audio visual materials, because we can coordinate that in advance. And then the last sentence I would say is the last two sentences are the only other thing that's significantly different from our current practices, which is, I do think do we limit the number? I know we never, okay. So this would limit, as written, this would limit the number of public appearances to 6 on any one agenda. So if you just got a large request, you would just take it on a first come, first served basis and then roll the others to a future agenda. And then it also says that once an individual has been granted a public appearance for a certain topic, that a subsequent appearance on that same topic can't be scheduled until 6 months has lapsed. They can come back for another topic. Those are both new things. Yes. And again, completely policy decisions at your discretion.
So about halfway through, Nowhere do I see where it specifically says that whatever they're speaking on in public appearance must be on the agenda. I see where it says the sentence that starts with may cover only one topic, then must be related to city business. But I don't see anything in there where it specifically says must be an agenda item.
The public appearance itself is an agenda item.
So it doesn't, so the public
But it's
appearance, the topic of the public appearance does not have to be around something on the agenda.
No,
Okay,
it itself is an
I got you.
agenda
Okay,
item.
that works, that works.
But I would assume that we would want to remove this, limit it to city business, just like we have with public comments, or do you want public appearances to have different standards?
I think a public appearance should have different standards. It needs to definitely be related to city business. Do y'all agree? What do you think?
And I appreciate having the maximum number
Yeah,
per meeting.
we never had that many, but you are pick up.
We had one that was pushing it, I think a while back, a while back.
And just to point out,
Coming to every one.
and just to point out, this also has the same, language around resident or property or business owner. So assuming that, so just want to make sure that's okay.
Yes.
Right. And then I will, let me say a little bit more about the public appearance. We are also requesting that if they are going to provide audiovisual materials, that they provide that in a single consolidated file in either PowerPoint or PDF format. And that's specifically to help us reduce the issue of that we've had a few times of you got my pictures out of order, or you don't have all of my pictures. So if it's just one file that they've assembled in the way they want it to be, the order they want it to go will help make sure we don't have issues like we've had a few times in the past.
In the same format, all of them.
Yes, one single file.
Okay.
So if there's multiple files, they would need to combine it in the order they wanted it.
Mhm.
What do we want to do? Because this has happened several times if we bring it in to me and say, can you put this together? Which you generally do. I mean, not, it happens more than it doesn't happen.
Do you mean at your office or do you mean at the meeting?
No, at our office, they'll bring in pictures and say, can you scan these and put them on a disc? Or can you know how to get these off of our phone onto a flash drive?
I mean, the way this is written, it wouldn't allow that, or it wouldn't require you to do that. Being told to bring it in the file, not in school. All of our staff.
I think you want to do everything you can to accommodate.
It's virtual, we would get into the same issue as, well, you didn't get one of my photos, or this isn't the order that I wanted it scanned in, or.
If there's something they can sign off
Mhm.
on saying that if that does happen, that you're not held responsible. And I do think there are a number of people that want to participate, that just don't have the ability to do that.
We could put that, something on the appearance form. of public comment.
Sure, I mean, we can, but that will stop them standing up there, y'all, and saying, this isn't what I presented. And Jan is not going to put out the form and say.
Yeah,
This is
well, I
what we
think we would
signed.
know at that point.
I mean, it doesn't also stop them from, if they want to hand out picture copies to you on the day, that's still allowed. I mean, this was really meant to address when they bring in,
Kids are raised.
yeah, either some sort of technology item that they want us to use it, or, I guess, photos that they want turned into technology. And my
Until you
main
could
concern
still-
is cybersecurity, so that
I was
we
gonna say, you
have.
could still have the same issue if somebody brought you a flash drive, right, and wanted you to rearrange, you still have the same.
Mhm.
What do we do there?
It's our recommendation that we don't put outside flash drives,
into our network, it could cause problems.
I can agree with that
Yeah,
recommendation.
and I'm the one that said something about it, and I'm fine with that.
So then they need, then that's when they do the handout.
And we can do everything we can to help them. We want to be helpful, but I just would say we just shouldn't allow that vulnerability personally. That's my
They need to go staples.
recommendation.
And if someone, brings something into me, I can say, I'll be happy to make copies and pass them out if the guys, but I'm not going to create your PowerPoint, for you.
You're not allowed.
Yes.
Was that a total rewrite of that? Just about.
No, I think
No.
it's what we
Good
have in
enough?
here, yeah.
Okay. All right.
We might add a sentence that, just says, we'll be as helpful as possible, all maintaining our cybersecurity.
I think that's a good sentence to add.
Okay, we'll do that
It's,
then.
just part of today's world increasingly on a daily basis.
Sure. We'll add kind of the reason why, so it doesn't appear to be
Right.
bureaucratic or helpful, we're just trying to protect.
Ms. Myers,
Yes,
can I just add something on that?
of course.
Maybe we could add something about copies should be prepared ahead of time, approaching the dais. Not really something I'm a big fan of. It limits our ability to engage if we need to. So if we could add something on that, that would be very helpful.
Sure. We do have a specific section somewhere about handing things out, so I'll get with you and we'll make sure the language protects the safety. I don't recall exactly where that is, and I don't think I have it highlighted because it's our current practice. So we'll make sure to address that. And then in the public participation section, it's really not anything major. And still just this same kind of thing. If they want to use audiovisual materials in a public hearing, that they have to bring those in advance. Same reason, so we can scan them and make sure that they're not have any potential of cybersecurity risk. So that's a little bit different than our current practice. And we don't have a lot of people using that during public hearings, but it has happened occasionally.
If not typically limited in 3 minutes with a 1 minute extension. Or I have not. They just let them go on. We had that couple last week tag teaming. Remember that? Three minutes to me seems sort of short around a public hearing, because many times it's like the last meeting, with the multifamily out by First Baptist. There was a lot of them were trying to explain a lot, right? In 3 minutes, if you're not familiar with the language, is not very long, maybe 5 minutes.
And you don't have to limit, you don't have to put a limit if you don't want to, I don't think.
No, we don't typically.
Do most, or do you know? Have any idea?
Not any city that I've ever.
We didn't. I think it depends on, I think it depends on the culture of the city and how.
And the need, and the experience of each city.
What are you gonna do, Tim? Take it out?
Let's put it in. Let's put maybe 5 minutes in with a 1 minute extension. At the-
Five with one, not three with
Yeah,
extensions.
I think 5 with 1. Because a lot of times, that's, again, like we had there are people with a lot of emotion that again, they don't really know they don't know the language, right? And so I think that takes up some time. So maybe 5 minutes with 1. We're unlimited now. Are you saying that's too much or not enough?
It's okay.
Why don't you go 5 and not put in policy a 1-minute extension, but just use your discretion?
Usually what I do when somebody runs out of time,
That's what you do.
I'll let them finish their thought. Right? So that's fine. Yeah, that's a good middle of the road. It's 5 minutes, no extension. No extension listed in the policy. One thing that happened, and I think I got a text during the meeting, is when that one couple got up there, they stood side by side. He spoke and then she spoke and then he spoke. Maybe a policy around someone not being able to speak a second time until maybe everyone else had spoken.
She was really sort of trying to help him. Help him marshal his thoughts and get it out.
Yeah, kind of became a bit of a sideshow.
Well,
Do you
Whole thing
mean,
was.
for a public hearing?
Yes.
Okay, so you want to allow people to speak more than once in a public hearing? Because then you're going to get, then everybody's going to want to come back and rebut
Back to it again.
everyone else's comments.
That's a good point.
I think that's practice that you.
One and done. Okay. That's fine. We haven't had that happen very often, so I don't think that's onerous or anything. Okay, we'll do that. You know, one more thing, about public appearance. A lot of times when people are standing there at the podium and the microphone, rather than going to stay near the microphone so we get a good recording. And then they get up and they move because they want to point out something on the map over there by Janet. And then are we losing the quality of the recording?
Yes, sir.
Do we need to think about some sort of a microphone or something like that? Because again, they don't necessarily know the language, so they're up there pointing at stuff instead of verbalizing it. And then we're losing the audio.
well, the audio, even with him standing right there,
Not great.
is very poor.
Yes. you can barely hear.
Glad to hear that. I thought it was my hearing.
Dangerous lasers.
That burn a hole in the TV.
It could be used as a weapon.
Well, that's just one thing that,
Let me give that some thought
Yeah.
and talk to IT about.
yeah, we
what
might
are
just
some
need to
options
change
there.
that process up a little bit.
Thank you for that.
Janet can hold her. They walk back and forth.
Like Bob Barker.
Well, if we want to, help our residents, which obviously we do, a handheld audio that they can move around a little bit is, assuming it's not ghastly expensive, it would be a good thing.
I think that probably, the whole thing probably makes Chief a little nervous.
Oh,
So I would,
Oh,
let
no, no,
me
Chief.
see what, let me give some thought and work with our IT folks on some ways that we could increase the ability to point to something on the screen with maybe not having to physically get so close to it. So we'll,
And we could turn the volume up a little because it is hard to hear.
okay.
There- the next to the last lady last time didn't move an inch, and I couldn't understand a word she said.
Okay, we'll work
I
on
don't know
that.
what the deal was.
All right, we've got about 4 minutes. Let's do item D down there at the bottom of page 4. I think that'll be an easy one. Chair has responsibility to control the discussion. Generally, a council member may be recognized to speak subsequent to the council member. I don't have a problem with the way we do things now, just kind of open forum, open discussion versus needing to recognize one of the council members to speak.
That's good.
What was the purpose behind adding that?
This is standard parliamentary procedure.
Oh, you read the book.
And so again, when all is well, all is well. When all is not well, it's not well.
Like in Flower Mountain.
So, you know.
You're fine.
Yes. So that's, I think, what you need to consider is that,
Leave it in.
if you guys are working well as a team, and this seems really formal, I know, but, God forbid you get to a place where that's not happening, you're gonna wish you had some formality, I think.
That makes sense. I just.
Yeah.
Leave it in and it'll be enforced.
Leave it in. We'll try our best to do it.
Okay.
So, yeah, good. Excuse me, this D that we're going over. Does this apply, for instance, Brian's giving a presentation, and we're asking Brian questions? Do we, may or may we ask Brian a question? May I, for that point, or are we addressing Brian when Brian is giving a presentation? When does this work? Or when does this fit in?
Typically, before anyone has the floor and can say something, you're needing to be recognized by the chair in a proper, parliamentary procedure, implemented, if you're running the meeting that way. A lot of, I don't know if Prime Gov does this, but, sometimes there's just a button that you can push to say, you'd like to speak, which is a little easier than having to feel like you have to interrupt, but, typically you would seek the chair controls who has the floor and whose turn it is to speak. And again, it's not a problem, but you can imagine if it was, a very divided, or you could have people talking over each other, and it could get
Right.
out of order very quickly.
So this D applies to every instance.
It would,
Okay, got it.
Traditionally it would.
Great,
yes.
thank you.
So are we gonna put that in practice, or are we gonna keep it like it is? Tim,
We'll keep it like it is,
I like it, thank you.
but we'll leave it in case
Yes.
it needs to
In
be
case you get
enforced
obstreperous, Judy.
Okay.
for whenever we buy that flower mound system.
So we're gonna leave it in, but we're gonna violate it every time.
Policies are made to be brought to light.
I think I would prefer, if you intend from the bat not to follow it, it would be, a little more problematic to, if a problem arises in the future, for you to then say, because of that particular, now we're gonna follow this rule. It's really no different than amending your policy to insert a new rule to address the problem when it arises. So, I don't know, I tend to think that if you know from the beginning that you don't intend to follow it.
It just seems very cumbersome.
It's not really as cumbersome as you think in most places. You just pull each person, you'll start with Susan or Judy and say, Councilmember Long, do you have anything? And you formally address them as you go down the dais. You don't have to, I want to talk now, or it's not, once you get used to the process. It's not.
And you do that now anyway, when you ask us to do anything you want to.
Instead of saying, council, do you have any questions? You can just start with Susan, Jessica.
We let it win.
Yeah.
Or even if you do still say, council, do you have any questions? I mean, it's as simple as, raise your hand, and then you say, Susan, and that's, she's requesting.
Oh, we can do that. That's fine.
That's what this is saying.
Yeah.
And if Susan has a question for Brian, and she would say, Mayor, I have a question, you would say, go ahead, and you would ask her. It's not like super,
I'm not the only one with questions.
everybody, picking on you.
We'll start tonight.
Yeah, but now you gotta raise your hand.
I kind of wave it, the royal wave.
But then while Susan has the floor, then someone else shouldn't jump in while she's speaking until then she's through, and anyone else, and then raised or recognized some way. But I mean, there are other systems and kind of what Brenda was saying. I don't know if ours does it, but, and I think at the last city we had, that's what they had. But just like you vote on your system, there's a raise your hand button also. And then the mayor would have the queue of who has asked to speak and in what order. And that way it's really easy. You can just
Okay.
call them off.
Right. Well, that
Not to
sounds good.
belabor this point, but I've had several residents who have watched our proceedings or come in to comment how much they see it as acceptable because we are relaxed. We're not asked, we're just less formal. Again, that doesn't address when we become contentious if that were to happen.
Okay. I've turned into 10. So, at this time, which is 3 minutes after 4, the council will enter into executive session. And pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.087, the city council will meet in closed session to discuss or deliberate commercial or financial information received from a business prospect that the governmental body seeks to have locate, stay, or expand in or near the city of Temple, and with which the governmental body is conducting economic development negotiations, or to deliberate the offer of a financial or other incentive to discuss a business to such a business prospect. No final action